Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are back with another installment of my favorite color series, this time going over my favorite blues. I think I have just under 20 today and in a wide range going from baby blues to deep navies. So without further ado, let me just show you my favorite blues. So the first blue I have is Dimension Nails Blueberry Flax Milk, and this is a sky blue milky crelly formula. So if you watched my unpopular opinions video, you know we were talking about how silly the blueberry milk nails trend was, but the pet peeve for me specifically was that a lot of the nail colors that were shown for the trend were blue creams. And I was like, if you want blueberry milk, you need a crelly kind of finish. So it just reminded me of this Dimension Nail shade that launched earlier this year. I absolutely loved it then before it became a trend, so I just needed to give it its own space here. So I especially love wearing this in 3 coats when it's built up a little bit more, but it still has that squishy look. It's just so nice. Next, I have Color Department's Forget Me Not, and this one is described as a retro pastel, which I don't really know what that means, but it's not quite a sky blue. I feel like this one has a touch of powderiness to it, so it's like almost a periwinkle, like it's the blue side of a periwinkle, because when it comes to periwinkles, I'm gonna have a separate video, but this one is definitely more on the blue side, but it's just not quite a true baby sky blue, if that makes sense. I just love it so much. That little hint of cornflower just brightens it up, and it is so beautiful. Next, I have Essie's Ride the Soundwave, and this one is like the perfect sky blue. It is so bright, where I would almost call it like a neon shade. Maybe not a neon, but it's like a wannabe neon, because it is just so bright. Like there's just so much whiteness to this color that it looks like I'm wearing a white base or something. And it also has such a fantastic formula for being such a bright pastel. I just can't get over this color. This whole collection in general I loved, but this shade definitely was a top favorite. Look at how bright that is. It is the perfect sky blue for spring. Another sky blue that I love is Color Department's Hydrated. I feel like I've talked about the shade several times, like in my summer favorites or some other favorites video or something, but this one is just such a bright, punchy blue that is more of a sky blue in my mind, but has a little bit of aqua to it, but not quite aqua. I have another aqua coming up. So this one is just so yummy, so bright. Like I mentioned, I love wearing this in the summertime. It just reminds me of the open skies with no clouds, and it's so sunny, and you have ice cream or a lemonade, and you're just so happy. So for my aqua, I have Orly's Give It a Swirl, and this came out a couple of months ago in the Sweet Retreats collection, I think it was called, and it just immediately became a favorite. I just loved this shade so much. I think it really is like the perfect aqua. So, and I've gotten so many comments saying that too, that you have all loved the shade and it's been your favorite aqua. So I don't know what Orly put in this one that just makes it stand out so much compared to the others, but whatever it was, I just need more of it because I cannot get over this shade. It is so good. So getting into some kind of sky blues, the first one I have is Ave's LA Looks, and this is described as a deep sky blue. So not only does this have such a beautiful bright color, but this one has a flawless 1-coat formula. Like, are you kidding? It deserves to be in this video. It is easily a favorite. Next up, I have Zoya Dory, and this is actually described as a cornflower type of blue, but I don't know, there's something about it that I just would classify like a sky blue as well. There definitely is like that powdery cornflower kind of color to it, which I'm just a sucker for. I don't know what it is about those kinds of colors, but they just are so satisfying to me. And this one had another flawless type of formula. I just feel like this one was a little bit too sheer on the first coat, so I needed a second just to really even things out, but it just looked so good on one coat alone. So if I was in a rush, I would probably just wear it in one. So I love that. And the color just stands out. It's so gorgeous. I can't get enough of this shade. Next, I have this super oldie for my collection. This is Bluebird Lacquer's Undecided, and this one I would consider like an azure blue because it's like really bright but not quite cerulean. So it's like a dark sky blue, maybe. I'm not exactly sure. Please let me know how you would call all of these shades and describe them because I'm having such a hard time. But I just adore how bright and vibrant and juicy this shade is. It just really stands out so much. It's like such a bright pop of color. And I think this was from a collection that was these borderline neon shades. So they're really bright, but not quite neons. So next up I have Nailtopia's Nailor's Knot, kind of a tongue twister, which I think I would describe as one of those cobalt blues, maybe a little bit dustier, but still very bright and very intense. And I just adore these kinds of blues so much. I feel like they're super eye-catching without being a neon, which I think is just so satisfying. So this one has a really nice formula. It's not quite even coverage on the first coat. There are some streaks, but it builds up to be fully opaque in two, and that color is just so beautiful. I cannot recommend this enough. Next is a somewhat new addition to my collection. This is Orly's Off The Grid from their summer collection that I thought was so awful, except for this shade, obviously. So this one is just a few shades deeper than the last one, but it's still somehow so incredibly bright and beautiful. It reminds me of the blue that you see in Moroccan tile art, which I think is just so beautiful, especially in the summertime. And this one has a flawless one coat formula, so easily a favorite. Finally, here's my neon pick. This is Cirque's Sky High from their Vice set last year. So it's pretty much a neon primary blue, and I just find that to be so satisfying. And even though this is a neon, it's not quite as eye-searing as other neons. I vaguely remember a few people not loving this shade, and I think especially the darker purple because they just weren't as bright as Cirque's usual neons, which definitely can be eye-searing. But I don't know, this one to me is still very bright, so I just think it's perfect for summer, especially the end of summer when you're starting to get into the deeper tones. The next blue I have is Confetti Dreams from Live Love Polish. This is an oldie in my collection that I think was actually one of my first Live Love polishes. Sadly, it hasn't come back since the Mooncat rebrand, but I think it totally should. It's this glittery, almost foily blue crelly with an electric blue shimmer and small hollow glitters. It's a bit sheer on the first coat, especially when using this awful skinny brush, but it is fully opaque on two coats, and it is just so pretty and eye-catching. I just think this is such a fun color, and it makes me so happy. So even though this is discontinued, I still had to give it a spot on this list. And if you find it in a D-stash, I highly recommend it. Now, this wouldn't be a favorite blues video if I didn't include Raindrop from Ave. You guys already know this was going to be here. Walker has some amazing blues in her catalog, as you will see soon, but this one is my top favorite. It's a stunning peacock teal blue crelly with dainty hollow glitter that's opaque in two coats. So as you can probably tell, I'm a pretty happy and optimistic person, so I tend to prefer bright and sunny weather. I don't necessarily hate the rain, but it just really brings down my mood sometimes, and I don't love it. But this shade reminds me how beautiful a rainy day can be. It just really gives me those vibes of cozying up with my favorite sweater and lighting my favorite candle, eating my favorite snacks, and snuggling with my favorite person. Another peacock blue I've been obsessed with is Josler, also from Olive Ave. This one I picked up recently, and even though it is a new shade to my collection, I just had to include it. It is that good. It's such a gorgeous shade of blue with this really strong teal undertone, and I think it's just so pretty and unique for fall, especially compared to your typical navy blues, which I'll get into next. This one was super creamy and opaque for me in just one coat, but you might need two if you prefer thinner ones. The next blue I have is Loud Lacquer's Denim Denim Denim, which is described as a dusty denim blue. I just think there's something so satisfying about this specific shade of blue. It's almost like the dusty fall version of those brighter cobalts that I just shared, if that makes sense. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I just think this one is so pretty, such a standout shade, and this one is another one coater, so I especially love that. Next is the newest addition to my collection. This is Middle of the Night from Olive Ave's recent fall collection that literally launched on Friday. This is a true midnight blue cream that is just chef's kiss perfection. It was easily my favorite from the collection. It's just a perfect navy blue that's deep, but not too deep that it looks black. Maybe in some low lightings, but I think you can still tell that it's blue, which I really love. Even though I've only had this shade in my collection for about a week, it just was one of those right away that I knew deserved to be a favorite. So if you remember my fall favorites from last year, you might remember this shade. This is Static Nails Rio, which I also recently shared as a comparison to the last shade. This is definitely pretty similar, but it's just a smidge deeper and almost more steely too. Like it has a bit more of a muted gray kind of tone to it. So I think it's like a slightly moodier version of a navy. And I just couldn't choose between these two, so they're both here. And last but certainly not least is Olive Ave's Pluto, which was released a few winters ago. This is one of my favorite deep, inky blues that I think is so perfect for those cold fall or especially winter days. I think this one is a great navy if you do want something that's super dark. It almost looks black, but it still has a very navy blue quality to it. I also love that this one has a slight purple undertone according to Walker. I feel like it just adds some warmth to this otherwise cold color. So even though this one is super dark, you probably could get away with one coat maybe if it was a little thicker and your nails were shorter, but I love doing two coats just to really intensify and deepen the color. It is just so dark and moody, not something I usually go for, but it's one that I love to have in my collection. And here is the blue Collage. I think this one is so satisfying, especially with how evenly split up the colors are in the rows. I'm really happy it worked out that way. I wasn't trying to do that. I know some in the middle might look like they're dead on dupes, but I swear they're not. There are slight differences. It was just really hard to get color accurate, but let me know if you have a favorite row of blue. So that wraps up my favorite blue nail polishes. Or at least the majority of them, because as you probably saw, I featured a lot of creams in this video, and that's definitely not to say I'm not a fan of blues when they're in a specialty finish formula, because I feel like I talk about certain shades a lot being my favorites, like Cirque's Huga or Island Pea's 0 Degrees, but I'm already planning on sharing those, or I already have shared those in my favorite finishes series, so I didn't want to have like a lot of overlap. So I figured since there's already almost 20 polishes in here and the majority of them are creams, it was already a big enough video. So hopefully you don't mind that they're kind of like split up and stuff. So yeah, let me know what some of your favorite blues are, or just any thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.